Welcome everyone to the Outsiders Podcast. Clint Schweitzer sitting in here flying solo today, which is fine because I got a great guest coming up. Guys, we're about to have Brock Olivo, former Tiger great, coming up here on the show. Going to be talking Mizzou football and Coastal Carolina football, as Brock is currently the running backs coach there at Coastal Carolina for the Chanticleers. So we're going to be talking a lot about his career, the current state of the Missouri Tigers, as well as his new gig in coaching for Coastal Carolina. Very excited to have Brock coming up here. On a personal note, Brock Olivo, easily one of my top 5 favorite Missouri football players of all time. One of the grittiest, toughest, most determined players I've ever seen on the field. So many great moments. Of course, the 97 season where Brock, Corby Jones, Ron James, Devin West, that whole team takes Missouri to a bowl game for the first time since 1983. Everyone remembers the famous flea kicker game against Nebraska in 97, a game Missouri certainly thought they had won until the final seconds with the kickball. We're going to try to bring that up to Brock. It's a sensitive subject for all of us here in Mizzou land, but we're going to talk about that game, talk about his career highlights and much more. Just very excited. I remember sitting in Faurot Field, and I believe it was Brock Olivo's junior season in 1995, and getting ready to watch Missouri play Bowling Green. Missouri lost at home to Bowling Green, I believe 17-10. It was not a good era for Missouri Tiger football. Brock was a part of a group that was able to change the culture and everything about that football program. Coach Larry Smith comes in here, and they were able to get things turned around 97 and 98 going to bowl games. So it is definitely with our pleasure here at the Outsiders Podcast that we are able to go ahead and welcome Brock Olivo to the program. And we are continuing with a man that needs no introduction here in the state of Missouri. We are, of course, joined right now by Brock Olivo. Brock, how you doing out in South Carolina, my man?
I'm doing pretty well, Clint. It doesn't feel too different from a Missouri summer. It's hot, it's humid. The only difference is there's the Atlantic Ocean is about 10 minutes away from campus here, so.
Yeah, we won't hold that against you, Mr. Olivo. Of course, I remember going and seeing you guys practice when you were in school at Mizzou out in Lexington in that heat box. Things have probably improved a little bit since then as far as off-season workouts go.
I'm going to say, yeah, you're right about that, Clint. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Tigers stay home now for training camp. So the accommodations are a lot better than they were back in the day. Although going to a military academy like that did have its positive effect on us. It definitely was a Spartan lifestyle there for however many weeks we were there, and it was meant to toughen you up, and I think it worked for the most part.
Well, I want to go back to that, and we can start there with your career at Mizzou. Of course, one of the most celebrated players in the history of the school. Your number's since been retired. Number 27 is on the ring of honor there at the stadium at Faurot Field. You were definitely part of a transition era. In the Larry Smith era, you came in. The first couple years were rough. You were a Missouri guy. You came to the home state school, and you guys got it turned around in 1997. Just kind of go back and talk about that, what it was like, in the dire years of like 95, 96, and then part of the turnaround with guys like Ron James, Corby Jones, Devin West. I could go on all day, but talk about how that transition was and how you guys were able to, become successful.
Yeah, Clint, exactly. It was, it was tough sailing there for a long time. I mean, if you're a Missouri Tiger fan, you know that, from the early to mid 80s on up to the mid 90s, it was bleak, and unless you really truly bled black and gold, you kind of wrote off the Tigers every year. For me, it was a thing. It was a pride issue going to school, playing for my home state university, which was the same deal for most of the guys who came in those during those first years with Larry. He got us excited again about Mizzou football, and he had a proven track record. Brought in a pretty good staff overall, and started laying the foundation for what, as you mentioned, ended up being the transition. Putting Missouri back on the map. It was no one individual. It was no one coach. It was no one administrator. Everybody was on board with it, and the university made the investment. The players. It was a cultural change for the players who were there, and we just collectively
Yep.
Just blue collar dudes, black and white, that got it done. And it's a tremendous feeling of pride to look back and reflect on those years, no question.
Well, great memories, even just for me as a fan growing up. I mean, I remember one of my first games was, I believe your junior season, a loss at home to Bowling Green in front of, 30,000 people at Faurot Field. Like, not a lot of excitement. The next year, though, things started kind of getting rolling. You guys, to me, I point to a game against Kansas in '96 where you guys rolled over Kansas at home that, to me, really kick-started what was to be the '97 season, of course, which was another game which was huge, the Ohio State game, a loss, but you guys played Ohio State tough. The season got rolling, and of course, 7-4 bowl season. I mean, talk about that. What it was like to get Missouri back to a bowl game after 13 years of being out of the bowl season. You guys get back in '97. Just talk about that season in general and how that felt.
Clint, here's one thing I'll never forget. We had just beaten Colorado on the road, sealed a bowl berth, and so we're on the flight coming back, and as we're pulling in, as we're descending on our approach, we can see, a bunch of lights, a bunch of, people surrounding the tarmac. They were actually fans, friends, family. It was crazy. It was awesome. We arrived at the airport that night in Columbia. We were greeted by I don't know how many people. I mean, there were hundreds of people there. That to me was. I looked at some of my teammates, and I don't think we really knew what we had done. It had been so long. It had been 13 years. Okay, yeah. And that gesture from the fans was important, and that kind of made us realize that, wow, we're for real. We've actually done something here. And that year was a cool year. We beat Texas. We took the number one team in the nation, as you well know, Nebraska,
yep.
To the final seconds of the game, and it took that miracle, whatever they call it, the flea kicker. It took that to beat us.
Oh God.
Yeah, right. I still think about that, and it's still I don't even like to talk about it because that would have changed. That would have changed a lot of people's lives on that field.
It would have.
It really would have. Although even though we didn't win, it definitely reaffirmed the presence of Missouri on the national map again as a football program. So I was proud of that too, even though it was a loss. That season was historical just because we took Mizzou back to a bowl game and kind of got it kicked off. So.
Well, going back to that '97 Nebraska game, of course, many people point to that as not only one of the great games in Mizzou football history, but one of the great games in college football history. A game that you guys controlled. You were able to move the ball, score regularly on a defense that featured guys like Grant Wistrom, Eric Warfield, future NFL players. Amon Green, of course, the running back. I mean, Scott Frost, an unstoppable option attack that they had. You had a couple touchdowns in that game yourself. How did it feel? Because I mean, a team like Nebraska that year, that was a team that played at a different level. Many consider that to be one of the great Nebraska teams of all time. How did it feel as a team to have that success, to be able to move the ball, to be in that game, and to be in a position to win it? I mean, that had to be just an incredible feeling in and of itself.
It was, Clint. It was. And like anybody who's played the game and played in a special game like that, anybody who's had the fortune to do that, can tell you, I get goosebumps when I think about that. That the atmosphere for Faurot Field that night, because it's different when a team's got a tradition, and it's week in and week out electricity in the home field, and it's packed, jam-packed, and you're playing, highly ranked teams. You almost become desensitized. It almost is not a big deal anymore. For us that night, man, that was our Super Bowl. Okay, that was when none of the players on the field that night, none of the Missouri Tigers on the field that night had ever experienced something so electric and important. Okay, surrounding not night we became the featured game. For us, that was the pinnacle, okay, of our career. And it was, we were trading punches. It was David and Goliath. We were trading punches with Goliath right down to the end, man.
I think Brett Musburger used that exact term on the broadcast, trading punches with the best team in the land, and that's exactly what happened. And your career will always be celebrated at Missouri. Of course, you got what did it feel like? It was 2003, a game I was actually at against Middle Tennessee. You get your jersey retired, your numbers retired at Mizzou. You come back. How did that feel coming back and being received, by the fans and getting that recognition?
Well, that obviously that felt great. One thing I always do, Clint, is make a point to recognize everybody I played with when I was there, because I never enjoyed. I always feel really uncomfortable talking about individual awards and recognition.
Sure.
And that stuff, because football is, as you well know, the ultimate team sport, man. And I truly believe that, and I coach that way as well. But so anytime anybody ever brings up that, I want to recognize the guys I played with.
Sure. So many great wins, so many greats. That was
the Corby Joneses of the world, the Ron Jameses, that whole offensive line, man. I mean, those guys across the board were just blue-collar, tough guys. Mike Morris's, Todd Niemeyer's, the Rob Reedys, all those guys, man. And across the board, it was just a great group of guys to be involved with, man. And so any success that any of us had individually, was a result of the collective group.
Well, I want to get to the current Tigers. Of course, we're previewing the SEC, which kind of sounds weird. Brock, you played in the Big 8 and then in the Big 12, of course, at the end of your career. But here we are. Missouri makes the move to the SEC. I'm sure you've had your eye on them, of course, being in South Carolina, coaching at Coastal Carolina currently. Missouri makes the move. Year one does not go so well. Last year, 5-7. Gary Pinkel leads this team. Do you feel like Missouri is going to be able to have success in this conference, or do you think it's going to take a little bit of time?
I think definitely it's going to take a little time, and I think everybody kind of knew that going into it, Clint. I really honestly don't think that anybody expected Missouri to, by any means, win the SEC or make big headlines in the beginning. That's a project. I think probably Coach Pinkel knew that as well. But it's look. You're trading punches with the big guys every week. Okay, so it's a completely different ball game now. I think hats off to Coach Pinkel, man, and his staff. They've done such a great job, and they make all of us so proud. Going from the Big 12 to the SEC is a huge step, and anybody who expected Mizzou, to do great things this past season, I think was just being unrealistic. Anybody who's an insider and understands football and the whole college, the recruiting part of it, I mean, that you got to recruit, man. You're competing with Alabama and LSU and Tennessee and USC and all these guys, South Carolina now, and so you got to bring your A game every week.
Oh, absolutely, and we will see how the season unfolds. Missouri does have some talent back. At the quarterback position, had tons of injuries last year. Certainly never an excuse, but in the SEC, that's going to happen pretty much weekly. But also want to get to your current team, Brock, the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina, and I did say that right, and I know what a Chanticleer is, by the way. A lot of people might be testing me on that.
You've read Chaucer then, huh?
Oh, well, exactly. And, just knowing that school, and of course, that school's produced NFL talent. Mike Tolbert, of course, in the league. You're a running backs coach, Brock. Give us a read on what the Chanticleers season outlook's going to be like for this year, and what it's like, transitioning from playing. Of course, you played 5 years in the NFL as a special teams ace, a captain. Talk to us about how your transition into coaching went, and how it's going there in Coastal, and what you think you can take from the season here coming into 2013.
Yeah, well, Clint, to answer your first question, I sure wouldn't want to be doing anything else.
Good.
The old saying, when you wake up and you go do something you love every day, you'll never work a day in your life. That rings true with me by all means. I love coaching football. I love teaching the game of football and the values that this game teaches young men. I love that. I've been able to do that on a daily basis. So I love my job. Coastal Carolina University
sounds like a billboard that's about to happen.
Yeah, Joe, right. Joe and I go way back. We knew each other years ago, and I'm honored to be able to coach with him and work for him. Coastal Carolina University, it's a great place because you're 10 minutes from the Atlantic Ocean. Clint, you're living in South Carolina. The climate's amazing. People are fired up about football down here. I mean, it's the South, man. So football is the reigning sport by far. We have a young program. We're only going into our 11th season, but we have a pretty darn good tradition. Won the conference 4 or 5 times, I believe. We won it last year. Went to the second round of the NCAA playoffs. It was a historic season for us. We've been to the playoffs, I think, 3 other times in the history of the school. So it's a good place to be. It's exciting. We have support from the athletic administration and the president. So all around, Clint, I can't complain about anything. But I tell you, we're chomping at the bit to get going in training camp. I've got a great group of running backs coming back, and we signed some good kids. So my guys are always. I always tell everybody they're the hardest working guys in the field because that was the only way that I knew how to get it done. And on game day, they're gonna be remembered for how hard they run and how well they protect the football and how well they block and execute. So I'm proud of my guys.
Well, definitely going to be looking forward to that. Going to be checking you out. And of course, this scenario that I'm going to hit you with makes all too much sense to me. But you've got ties here to Missouri. Missouri always looking for opponents. We need to get a game going on. We need Coastal Carolina to come here to Missouri, get some recruiting ties back here from where you're from. Let's make that happen, Brock. How do we do it?
Hey! All I got. You know what? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put Joe in touch with Mike, and Mike Alden. We're gonna get that thing worked out, and I'll put him in touch with Coach Pinkel. We'll get all those guys on the line and get it worked out because I need to come home. Man.
Exactly.
I need a free trip home.
Well, and of course, then we want to do a return game out there because I haven't been to Myrtle Beach yet, and we need to make that happen too. We'll work on that detail later, but definitely want to do that. Brock, I tell you what, man, cannot appreciate you enough for coming on. So many more things that I'd love to talk to you about at a later time, but I know you guys are very busy right now. Cannot appreciate you enough for giving us your time today. You are a class act, one of the toughest players ever in the history of the University of Missouri, and we can't wait for 2013. We're going to keep our eye on you, and the Chanticleer is coming up this year, Brock. So thank you so much, man. We'll be in touch. Good luck this season.
Clint, thank you, man. I appreciate you and everything you do. And go Tigers.
Hey, anytime. We'll catch up again down the road, Brock. We appreciate it. And a big thanks to Brock Olivo for taking time out of his busy coaching schedule to come on and join us today. I know a lot of Tiger fans are going to be pumped to hear from him. He's just one of the most revered players of the modern era here at Mizzou. Again, just cannot forget what a tough and gritty player he was and part of the turning around of the program. And he'll always be remembered for that. Him along with, Corby Joneses, the DeMonte Crosses. He mentioned the offensive line, Rob Reddy. Talked about Ron James, Devin Wett, just a great group of individuals that were able to turn this program around in the late 90s and help lay the groundwork for where it is today as Missouri has transitioned into the SEC. We will see how certainly that season plays out as Brock Olivo definitely on board with the line of thinking that it takes a little while to get things rolling in a conference like that, and cannot argue with him there. But we want to thank him a lot for coming on. Thank you for joining us, The Outsiders Podcast. Be sure to check us out, Facebook and Twitter, and our website, theoutsiderspodcast.weebly.com. For Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groniger, we appreciate you joining us, and thanks a lot. We'll see you again next time.